All right, tonight we are going to be looking at a 5-1 projector, an emotional projector who's 100% tribal, with the 1949 being the only channel. And this is a projector on the cross of healing with the personality sun in the 25-5. And so I'm also on the cross of healing. I'm also a 5-1 on the cross of healing, but my personality sun is in 46-5. So here's someone born 6 months apart from me. And so there's a little different accent on it. With the 25-5, it's all about innocence. 25, the gate of innocence. And we're looking here, we see this actually in an undefined G center. The only definition we have here is the root in the solar plexus. So it's always a little complex when somebody's personality sun is in an undefined gate. I mean, in fact, we can even go further and say both the personality sun and the personality earth are in the undefined G center. Sorry, an undefined center, not gate. So when these personality sun gate or the personality earth gate, or both, as in this case, are in an undefined center, it's a little tricky because this is a quality of this person and of their mind and how their mind works, but it's a quality of them that, in this case, doesn't actually have to do with their life force. It doesn't actually have to do with, it's not connected to that solar plexus where the actual decisions are made out of clarity. So just to kind of take a step back, I guess what this means is it kind of reiterates the fact that for human design, your personality is not really here for you. I mean, you can enjoy it, sure. You can enjoy what you notice, and you can enjoy, your mind. You can especially enjoy it once you've surrendered to strategy and authority, because at that point, your mind is essentially no longer stressing out about having to make the decisions because you have a mechanical process that you can trust to make decisions. It's really the personality, the mind, if you will, is for other people. It's for outer authority, not inner authority. It's for expressing information, transmitting information, and expressing your own, ideally, your own unique, differentiated perspective and your differentiated motivation. By which I mean, as you decondition, your mind differentiates, it individuates, it becomes more unique, more different, because you're able to express that uniqueness, which is always there in potentia, in potential, basically. Just like the seed has the potential to grow into a tree. And so you have this potential to differentiate, and that occurs on both sides. That differentiation occurs both on the personality and the design side. The difference is that on the personality side, it's really here to become ultimately the outer authority for other people, the mind as outer authority. And this is where human design is really unique compared to other mystical systems where the mind is still treated as the inner authority. That's the seven-centered way. We've had 90,000 years of the mind being the inner authority. And in fact, that was a necessary evolutionary phase. It was necessary for not only human survival, but the flourishing of humanity and the building of all the big cities and the empires and the development of all of the sciences and the arts and the traditions and all of the things that are centered around the left variable, strategic, seven-centered mind, essentially developing the mind as a tool, developing the mind as a way not only to survive but to ultimately dominate, kind of as an apex predator. And now we're nine-centered beings. So now we're unlearning all of that, and we're now at a phase in human evolutionary development where the mind can take its rightful place as outer authority, giving up its control of the decision-making process of the bioform. Of course, this is not easy for the mind to do. This is what human design is all about. The struggle for decision-making. How are you making decisions? Well, most people are making decisions with checklists, with pros and cons, with hierarchies that you can see in the body graph, because that hierarchy is going to be based on the lack of definition in the chart. It's going to be based on bridging gates for split definitions. It's going to be based on centers for everyone else. And it's the openness in the chart where essentially everyone's trying to be everything. You take somebody and they have all this openness, and they're trying to act as if it's all defined. So they have an undefined ego, but they're trying to keep their promises, even though they don't have consistent access to willpower. And they're trying to keep their discipline, and they're trying to maintain, and all this stuff. And it's like that for every center. And it's even like that, even if you had all 9 centers defined, in the openness due to lack of activation, the receptors, as it were, the unactivated gates. So what I'm really saying is that human design shows you a map of what's you and a map of what's not you. And once you've surrendered to your correct decision-making process, there's no better or worse chart. People will look at having the personality sun in an undefined center, as in this case. Personality sun and earth, 25 and 46, are both in the undefined G center. And they immediately go, oh, I wish that G center was defined. I wish I had a defined G center. Or I have undefined spleen. For years, I wished I had a defined spleen. Because everything I understood about the defined spleen, they feel good all the time, they're not clingy, they have, these healthy immune systems, all this stuff. Well, what happens is, as you deepen into your human design experiment, you realize it's not just lip service to say that your chart is perfect the way it is, that you have the potential to express the perfection of your chart. I mean, surely there are more and less difficult configurations and combinations, particularly when you get into substructure. You end up with kind of interesting variations that are, I won't call them evolutionary dead ends, but I'll say that they're at least more challenging than others. So I'm not trying to equalize everything, because that's also a form of homogenization, a form of, eradicating difference by saying it's all the same. No, not at all. But what you will realize, all of those, oh, I wish I had a defined G center, oh, I wish I wasn't a split definition, or I wish I was this or that, that starts to go away. It really does. As you deepen into living your design, as you continue to experiment, you become, it's basically, in short, it's self-love. You start to love your design, and it's like the first real self-love that's not just paying lip service to self-love, because there's a lot of self-help out there that gives you affirmations about self-love, but how can you love yourself if you don't know yourself, if you don't know who you really are, if you're not really living truly as yourself? Now, I do find that projectors in general aren't really here to know themselves in the way that generators are. A generator, when I do a reading for them, it's really all about them getting to know themselves and getting to know what they really like and dislike, and what they really want and don't want, and so on. And for projectors, I think it's that one of the greatest values. I think understanding your own dynamic as a projector can be very helpful, but that's a secondary value. The greatest value is actually to do charts for everybody in your life. everybody you interact with, and to understand that interaction with them, because projectors are here to guide others, they're here to coordinate with others, they're here to work with systems, they're here to guide the way through complex interpersonal situations. It's incredibly helpful for projectors to understand interpersonal dynamics through human design. They tend to know themselves pretty well. I would say for generators, it's about purpose fulfilled through discovery of their own unique purpose, to basically through improved self-knowledge and thus surrender to, maybe they've been vegetarian their whole lives and they discover that they actually like eating meat, or vice versa. Maybe they've been night owls their whole lives, they discover they like waking up early. All of this discovery that happens, it happens for all types, it happens for everyone, but for generators it's really the name of the game, because then it leads them to their purpose, which is ultimately to work, to build, to construct, to use their sacral energy correctly. Well, for projectors, it's not about what they're doing. It's about who's in their life. So for a projector, it's so important, not just the self-knowledge part of human design, but really understanding interactions with other people, overlaying your chart on other people's charts, noticing when you have a hanging gate and when they have that harmonic gate at the other end of the channel, and they electromagnetically make the full channel with you. That's what it's about for a projector. So, and for a manifestor, they also tend to know themselves pretty well. So it's more about understanding their impact on others and purpose fulfilled through impact. And for a reflector, it's very much about people and place, about community, and about the larger milieu that they're a part of. So in any case, what human design is giving you is this map, this personality and this design side, and really it's showing you how you can surrender to the design. You can surrender to the form. I mean, you're really surrendering to the quantum, which is the combination of the personality and the design. And together that creates a sum greater than, or a whole greater than the sum of the parts. And that's what you're really surrendering to, is the decision-making power of that whole, of that quantum. And that is ultimately the bioform, which is not just the visible physical body, but also the aura, the life force energy. And that's what it's about. And so here, for instance, we see that as not self, the personality is going to be not only making decisions that are not self from the mind, it's going to be making decisions from an undefined G center. So it's going to be making decisions based on trying to find where it should go, trying to find identity, trying to find love, trying to find a sense of place, trying to find the right job, and never finding it. Always, the grass is always greener. There's something else out there, this forever uncertainty that it's correct. And the mind is going to keep looking and keep looking and keep looking. And that's what it's going to do. But as soon as there's a surrender to the form, that's not going to be an issue. At that point, the mind can change its value from being the thing that's always making the wrong decision to basically a center, to understanding, for instance, with the undefined G center, to being a source of wisdom and understanding about people, being wise about who knows where they're going and who doesn't, who can guide you to the right place and who can't, who's a good matchmaker for you and who isn't. It's a very different quality. Instead of you finding the right people for you and having to find the right places for you and so on, it's recognizing those people in your life who find the correct things for you. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm looking at the chart now. So I guess let's talk for now just about strategy and authority here. So the strategy of the projector is to wait for the invitation. It's to wait and essentially, instead of initiating, going up to somebody, approaching them, it's to wait for them to recognize you, for them to welcome you in. And the authority, as solar plexus authority, is about waiting for emotional clarity. This is slow. Anyone who has the solar plexus defined needs to adjust the tempo of their life so that they make decisions slowly. It's about slowing down. It's not making decisions impulsively, not making decisions in the moment, but making decisions once clarity has been reached. And there's never going to be 100% clarity, but there's going to be enough clarity. And how do you know that's enough? Well, that's going to be a bit of a process. But it's ultimately waiting for that clarity where you'll know when you have it. You will have this feeling basically of the nervousness being gone. So it's learning to recognize, because see, you might not even know how nervous you are. People who have solar plexus defined will often make decisions when they're very nervous about. And they're in a state of nervousness, but they just nervously say yes or no. They don't even realize it. The clarity is there when you're no longer nervous, when there's no longer a nervous energy. It's not the same thing as certainty. Clarity is never certain. It's simply a state of rest of the wave. Now, because it's a tribal wave, this is a wave that's going to go up and down, but generally with its smaller micro up and downs, it's going to continue to climb up. It's a ratchet wave. And it's going to go up and up and up until it crashes down. Now, it could actually go either direction, but essentially it's going to be, it's going to be basically like a straw that broke the donkey's back sort of thing, where it's going to be okay until it isn't. And then someone goes, geez, why is today the day you decided to quit your job? Just because of that one little thing? And they say, no, it's not because of that one little thing. It's been building up for 6 months. This one little thing is just the final straw. So it builds up, and it explodes, or it breaks down. It can go other ways too. It can be the story of hubris, of somebody who, like Kid Icarus, flies higher and higher and higher and crashes. This is how the tribal wave works. It's a build-up and burst sort of a wave. Now, it's in the 1949. It's from the 1949. This is basically a tribal bonding channel. 19 says, I'm going to flirt, and 19 knows how to flirt. And part of that flirtation is to say, show me what you got. Show me the material resources. Show me your intelligence. Show me, to the other person. That flirting is basically a challenge to them, getting them to demonstrate it. So at a basic level, it could even be, show me your resources. And through that flirting, then the other person goes, oh, I'll show you. And they show a bunch of resources. And then there's some sort of connection that happens, bonding that happens. Well, once there's that bonding, the 49 comes along and it says, okay, you're mine now. So the thing is, this kind of tribal attitude can be repressed in our culture because it's not cool to be possessive, and it's not cool to be jealous, and so on. And so what you'll find is, culturally speaking, that people who have this channel may be so conditioned to hide that aspect that they're so out of touch with it, they don't realize how possessive they truly are. They don't realize they're designed to be possessive, or they're designed to be possessed. And this whole sense of belonging to the other person, or the other person belongs to you, is deeply tribal. This is where jealousy comes along. This is where it comes from. And it's also about fairness. This is a real channel where you can say, no, don't give them the same portion of food because they didn't work for it. It's not fair that they would be treated the same way as this other person's treated who worked much harder. So there's all of this sort of old-fashioned, quote-unquote, tribal stuff going on here. Now just remember, this is not bad. It's not bad, and there's so many different expressions of it. It's really just about exploring and experimenting with what expression of this tribal frequency or tribal energy suits you, and what is your expression of it. And how do you carry this energy? How do you own this energy? And ultimately, how are you recognized for this energy? See, there's 36 different, I guess not 36, I don't know how many projected channels there are, maybe 20-something. There's 20-something ways that a projector can be recognized, one for each projector channel. And so when people talk about projector recognition, it's not like there's just one single, like uniform way that a projector is recognized. In your case, you're recognized for the 1949. So when you feel that deep sense of recognition, it's going to be for how supportive you are, for your unique way of being supportive, for your loyalty, for all of these tribal concepts, for your touch. You'll be recognized because touch is also tribal. You'll be recognized for your nose for things, because tribal is connected to the sense of smell. It's being recognized, and I don't mean this entirely literally. It could be a nose for a rat, or a nose for a good find, or a nose for investment. But in any case, it's up to you to figure out exactly how that recognition works. I'm just kind of giving you pieces of the puzzle. And part of the puzzle is that when you feel that deep sense of successfully being recognized, or successfully guiding people, successfully connecting to someone in a deep way, it's going to be through your unique expression of this life force energy, right? Your unique expression of 1949. And what that unique expression of 1949 looks like is up to you. That's what it's about, to differentiate. There can be 1 million people that have this channel, and most of them are going to carry that energy and express that energy in a homogenized way. They're going to carry that energy in a way that's consistent, and it's going to basically be the undifferentiated version. But what human design is about is how you then have the potential to live out that energy theme in a way that is uniquely yours. So this 1949, this waiting for clarity. So this is what it's really about. Finding the clarity about which invitation is correct, which recognition is true and deep, who you can guide and who you can't. Now, what's standing in the way of it? Well, here is where human design gives you a map. It gives you a map of the not self as well as the self. As Ra puts it, it shows you what is you, and it shows you what isn't you. And it shows you that your whole life you've been trusting what's not you. And so we see that the absolute strongest here is that undefined ego. So just at a very basic, fundamental level, we can kind of show this dichotomy between what is you, what is your correct decision-making process, waiting for the invitation, waiting to be recognized, and waiting for the emotional clarity about what invitations are correct for you and who's correct for you and so on. And you get that clarity before making the decision. That's what's really you. Now, what's standing in the way of the clarity? The undefined ego. So that undefined ego is going to be there every step of the way saying, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and say yes, or go ahead and say no, so that you can prove yourself. And what's it trying to prove? Well, 21 and 26. To prove you have the stamina, and to prove you have the nerve. I'll prove that I have the stamina for this. I'll prove that I have the control. I'll prove that I have the discipline for it. and I'll prove that I can convince them, that I can sell them on it, that I have the nerve to do it. So every step of the way will be this feeling that if I don't prove that I have the stamina, if I don't prove that I have the nerve, I'm going to end up bitter. And it's like a button. It's like a button people can press. I was doing a human design reading for someone who has gate 51 in the undefined ego. And gate 51 is all about courage. I'll prove I have the courage. Now, in your case, you don't have gate 51. You have the harmonic gate 25 as your personality sun, right? So in your case, it's not going to be that I have to prove I have the courage. For this person I was doing the reading for, they always felt they had to prove they had the courage. That if someone called them chicken, they would do it just to spite that person, just to prove that person wrong. You're too chicken to jump off this rock into the lake. Oh, really? I'll show you. And they, jump off the rock into the lake to prove they have the courage. Now, in your case, you don't have gate 51. You do have gate 25. So it's going to be this feeling that there's something missing in you, that there's a flaw. So the deconditioning here is realizing you're perfect just the way you are, that there's a perfection in every design, and that you're not designed to have consistent access to that courage. But there's this feeling of, if only I had gate 51, everything would be different. I would be successful if only I had the courage, but unfortunately, I'm too cowardly. I don't have the guts to do it. I don't have the guts to jump into the unknown, and that's my problem, right? Everyone talks about what problem they have. So you can see already this distinction where, and also I would extend that to gate 40. Gate 40 is the gate of capacity. It's the pack mule that works really hard, that has the capacity to work. And so in your case, because you're missing gate 51 and gate 40, but you have gate 25 and gate 37, there's going to be a lot of self-recrimination in those two areas. For the other two ego gates, you do have those activated, so there's going to be this fantasy mirage that you have to do those things, that doing those things will bring you success. So already we can kind of divide here and look at the four ego gates and see that two of those gates you're going to experience as flaws, as problems, as things that are missing, as defects. You're going to feel defective, that there's something wrong with you. The other two, you're going to, identify with and feel like you need to perform. You need to do them. So deconditioning is different depending on the gate. Ultimately, the deconditioning has the same final outcome, which is the outcome of the realization that you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to make promises. You don't have to do all that ego stuff. And you can just surrender to your process of emotional clarity, and wait for that clarity, and that will guide you correctly every single time. But you can see that the way you get there is different depending on the gates. So for gate 51 and gate 40, deconditioning means accepting yourself just as you are, and accepting that you don't need to have those two gates that you feel like are missing. They're not missing. You have everything you need. There's not a defect. It's not a mistake. Not a flaw, Feeling like there's some flaw in you. Like, if only I were more courageous. If only I were willing to jump into the unknown. If only I were willing to pack up and move cross country. But instead, I'm too scared. I'm too chicken. I'm too much of a coward. Just get rid of all that negative self-talk. You don't need it. You don't need it. It's not you. It's the mind tormenting you, telling you how everything would be different if only you were different. But that's a mirage. It's an illusion. And the same for gate 40. If only I were a harder worker, if only I, had the capacity to take on more, if only I were a better friend, a better family member, and so on. You're not here to beat yourself up about these things, to try to improve and get better. Deconditioning is realizing that that's all a trick. It's a trick the mind is playing on you to keep you trapped in the not self. All of this negative self-talk about how I'm missing, these things. Then on the other hand, you have gate 26 and gate 21. These are going to be the gates that you identify with and think are you, but they're not really you. But you're going to think, oh, I have to do these things. I have to keep control, gate 21. I have to keep discipline, also gate 21. I have to convince people of things, gate 26. I have to sell them on it, gate 26. And feeling like you have to do these things or you're going to end up bitter. I can avoid bitterness as long as I keep in control. I can avoid bitterness as long as I can be convincing to people, and so on. So deconditioning here is realizing you don't have to do those things. So after the ego, the next strongest center is the G center. And I'm going to finish up this reading on the G center because I can't overstress the importance, particularly because of your personality, sun, and earth in the G center. I mean, this is your incarnation cross. Half of it's in the G center. The other half is in your defined root, so you have more consistent access to it. But still, this is a very strong conditioning force. And I would encourage you to look at the other centers too. Just because I'm skipping over them doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be important for you. I mean, for instance, that undefined spleen, always holding on to things that aren't good for you. Undefined ajna, completely undefined, completely open. Always, trying to be certain and trying to be sure. And you can chain together the keynotes that, with the undefined ego, with the undefined ajna, always trying to prove how certain you are. With the undefined ego, with the undefined spleen, always trying to prove how good you are at holding on. How you'll never let go. Proving you have the willpower and the, nerve and the discipline, the stamina to hold on and never let go. With that gate 21, I'll prove to you I'll never let go of you, right? Or with the undefined G center, I'll prove to you how good I am at finding my way. But that's not you. So I just want to finish by talking about the G center because I think it's so profound. And it's especially important for projectors because the G center has to do with people and place. And projectors, it's so important for them because the connection between people and place, you meet the right people at the right place. You're not going to meet the right people if you're in the wrong place. And where you live and what community you're a part of and what people live there also is so very important to a projector. For a generator, the most important thing is how they're using their energy. So they could live in a totally wrong environment and be surrounded with wrong people, and sure, their lives would be miserable and full of resistance. But as long as they're, working on their novel or making their painting or building their skyscraper or whatever it is the generator is putting their energy into, curing diseases, it could be anything. It could be anything. As long as the generator is doing that, they're going to find satisfaction. And yes, you can improve the generator's life by helping them find the right place and the right people. If they have a defined G center, helping them get in touch with their own inner compass. If they have an undefined G center, helping them recognize who in their life can help to take them to those places and direct them and point them in the right direction. But it's not the end-all, be-all for the generator in the way that it is for the projector. So I just want to kind of restate just how important it is for the projector to have the right people in their life. Now, of course, the instinct, the not self here, is going to immediately go, yes, I have to find them. Yes, I have to keep looking. I can't stop searching. I can't stop trying to find them. I have to find what direction is correct for me. I have to find the place that's correct for me. I have to find the people that are correct for me, and on and on and on. And that is the not self. The deconditioning is to realize that with your undefined G-center, you have an incredible window that is potentially extremely discerning about who is correct for you and who isn't. And it's going to take time through your emotional clarity process. You're ultimately going to have to trust your strategy and authority. Right? It's your strategy and authority that's going to ultimately determine who's correct for you. But that undefined G-center can still be a window, and you can start to notice. And this gives the mind something to do. The mind doesn't want to just give up its power and not have anything to do. So, kind of homework, I guess you could say, for the undefined G-center is, their homework is to look back at all the people in your life and do charts for them, do body graphs for them, and see which of them have the defined G-center and which don't. The ones that have the defined G-center are potentially, not certainly, but potentially good people for directing you to things. And when you're looking for a place to live, when you're looking for a relationship, when you're looking for a job, when you're looking for new friends, when you're looking for anything that the G-center cares about, even a potential identity, when you're looking for things that can be, because of course the undefined G-center is supposed to have a very flexible identity, but nevertheless, things that you could identify with, things that you could enjoy, even if only temporarily. Look to the defined G-center people in your life and ask them or inform them. You can inform anybody. It's not breaking the rule that projectors are supposed to wait for the invitation to inform people. Just to be clear, informing somebody is not an energetic thing. It's an informational thing. Everyone likes to be informed. And, it's different to say, would you do this for me, than it is to say, by the way, I'm looking for a place to live. By the way, I'm looking for a job, and so on. Expressing that information doesn't, put a big energetic burden on people. So it's not experienced by them as a projector accosting them with a piercing aura. Now, of course, you're going to have to experiment with it because it all depends on the subtleties and it depends on how you do it. And I could imagine a projector going where they're not invited under the auspices of informing, and it doesn't work out, right? But in any case, look at the people in your life that have a defined G-center. And when you're looking for a place to live, don't try to find it yourself. Don't go on Craigslist making ads, making posts. Don't go out there, initiating. Don't go there driving through the town and calling the phone numbers you see. Don't do any of that. That's defined G-center stuff. Instead, look to your friends who have a defined G-center. And here's the test. If they are correct for you, they will take you to the right place. And how will you know it's right? You'll feel comfortable there. You'll feel comfortable there. It's very important for you to only be in places you feel comfortable. If you're in places where you feel uncomfortable, it has a deleterious effect on you. And the people you meet in places where you're uncomfortable are not correct people for you. This is the people in place rule for the undefined G-center. That you meet the right people in the right place, and the right people take you to the right place. So this is what I want you to do for kind of homework, is really just do the charts of the people in your life, notice who has a defined G-center or not. Now, just because it's defined does not mean that they're correct for you. If they take you to places and you feel really uncomfortable, they're not good for you. They're not your allies. They're not really here for you. They might be your friend, they might be your lover, but they're not your ally. And so this is so the homework doesn't end with just finding who has a defined G-center. What it's really about is who has a defined G-center And do you feel comfortable when they take you somewhere? This is the experiment. And then next time you see that person, don't say, hey, I think we should go to this new restaurant I heard about. No. Ask them, say, or inform them. I would love for you to take me to somewhere that you choose. And if they are defined G center, they're probably going to be like, sure, I have a perfect place in mind. Because the defined G center is always thinking of where they could go and what they could do and so on. They're always on the hunt. They're always out there searching. It's correct for them to do that. It's not correct for you. It's not healthy for you. And it's actually tragic because when you go out and find the place on your own, there's that hidden opportunity cost. Not only is the place not correct for you, but then another place comes along. And one of your defined G-center friends says to you, by the way, I found the perfect place for you. And you say, well, I already signed a lease. I'm moving to this other spot that I found. But part of you knows that they found the better place. So that's what it's really about. It's about, you don't find the place, you just practice discernment. So it's shifting. It's shifting it from, instead of I have to find my true love, to I have many suitors, many of whom I've neglected. I have to practice discernment to discern whether these suitors are correct for me or not. Because if I keep going out there and finding love, that's my not self. That's my mind. I have to let love find me. It's the same for a place to live. It's the same for friends, collaborators, everyone in your life, the people that you guide. If you were a defined G-center projection, if you were a defined G-center projector, you would have to go out and find all these people. You'd have to go out and hunt for them. You'd be on the search for them. But because you're undefined G-center, you don't have to search for them. In fact, you shouldn't search for them. You should simply be discerning about them. And realize that there are going to be people in your life who can take you to the right places. And in those right places, you'll meet more of the right people. And it's up to you to be discerning about that. All right. Thanks for listening. Take care.